High school teachers of Reddit, what is the one thing that you want your students to know that you'd never tell them in person? Mikey's James says, when you think you are being genius by getting me to talk about random things at the beginning of class instead of teaching, I'm really allowing it to happen. See, I don't have enough plan to cover a full class. Lecky411 says, I knew you were cheating, so I gave you a test with the answers in a different order for the rest of the semester. You clearly weren't very bright to figure it out, and yes, I am that spiteful. It was easier than reporting the cheating. Don't mess with that. Amway says, one day you're going to come across people who are not being paid to tolerate you, and all of a sudden life is going to become considerably more difficult. Papia says, I encourage my worst kids as much or more than my favorites because I don't want them back in my class next year. Mudra 311 says, not a teacher, but I subbed for a bit and was a camp counselor. If you're going to be a shithead, at least be likable. I had kids who I just flat out disliked because they weren't funny and just annoying. On the flip side, I had kids that I had to hide my laughter and actually discipline them because they were genuinely likable kids who had shitty habits. Moonwalkers B says, that we have much better hearing than you assume. We just choose our battles as it pertains to inappropriate comments. And sometimes I pretend not to see that thing you did just because I too found it humorous, and speaking to you about it would only result in me cracking up. Princess Mo says, if you're going to eat in class, stop staring at me while you're doing it. You're ratting yourself out. MR Finch 8604 says, I can smell you. Everyone can. Please, for the love of God, use deodorant. Bumbling Blunderbuss says, that it's just as weird for me as it is for you when we bump into each other in public. Acrator Fan says, I don't care that you came to class stoned. Just stop interrupting class, and for God's sake, don't touch any power tools while you're stoned. Funky Chromemedina says, the weed smell doesn't magically disappear between the parking lot and my classroom. Tid_Wrangler says, yes, I do have favorite students. No, I won't tell you who they are because that would discourage you, but yes, they're probably who you imagine them to be. Rosfoss says, if I didn't think you would abuse the situation, I would really enjoy being more human and casual around you. I think you are a fun person to be around. McCoyd says, my gamertag. I usually say there's a policy against it, but there isn't. I just don't wanna play Overwatch or whatever with a bunch of relatively good kids who turn into total monsters when they play video games. If I tell the cool ones, it'll get around. Sometimes Yorthaniel says, I'd imagine the hot teachers are very aware of the students' perception of them. 7669 says, I can definitely hear the horrible things you are saying. Yes, I see that you are on the other side of the room. I may be old to you, but I am certainly not deaf. Big Nicky 222 says, I'm a bus driver. Sit the fuck down, you will die if I crash. Original_Anya says, I hate the texts as much as you do, but everyone just shrugs when I suggest changing them up. I'm sorry they made us keep that awful after book on the list. I genuinely offered to buy them all back from students so I could burn the waste of time that they are. Hayhames says, I actually teach middle school rather than high school, but I'll play, I love them a whole bunch. I do actually tell them this, that's not the thing, but goddamn every single middle schooler is an asshole. Like, even the best ones. They're all assholes. You can't help it at that age. Part of the process of being a good middle school teacher is accepting the assholishness and figuring out ways to work with it. Don't worry, guys, your peers, and you, will stop being assholes soon. Most of you, anyway. Also, all the things you think your parents and teachers don't know about? We do. We've done it all. We just would prefer not to think about you doing it because you're much too young. Jorobo says, a lot of us probably drink, smoke, sleep around, etc. more than you do, and hearing you talking about it and trying to hide it as if it's something we wouldn't know about is richly ironic. Sebastian94 says, I can see who you have a crush on in the classroom. The classroom comedian says, a few off the top of my head. Just because I like you as a person doesn't mean that I won't fail you. Being smart isn't a justification for being lazy, and I can't pass someone that never hands in work. I moved you away from your friends because they were taking you down with them. You have a real future in sports, but you need to pass my class to play them. Your friends were making you fail, and if you don't get to play volleyball, I don't know what kind of future you have in front of you. I wish that the positivity that you get in my class could follow you home. I've met your parents and they are a nightmare. I do my best to encourage you here, but I know that some days, that just might not be enough. I have never and will never find a student intimidating. That's why I laughed at you when you asked me if I knew who your father was. Yeah, he's the manager of a car dealership. That means nothing to nobody. I had a kid throw a desk at me and, while it scared me in the moment, it didn't make me fear him. One day, you will meet someone who has real power, and I just wish that I could be there to see it. Aldesuda says, you're unique, you're not special. Set your goals high, but understand that if you change your goals to needs, you will have a lifetime of disappointment. Kalmadaglady says, if your parents email a teacher and argue with them, the whole staff knows. At least at my school. Smiling Sarcastic 1221 says, one of the most valuable lessons I can teach you is to fake looking busy. If we're supposed to be working on an assignment or reading or whatever, and you see me coming your way, at the least have a piece of paper on your desk and a pen in your hand and some shit on your paper, and then I won't bother you. If you have nothing going on and can't even be bothered to make it look like you're trying, I'm heading your way. This lesson will be invaluable with eventual bosses someday. Polanco Madanko says, that I lied to you when I said I was 40. I was actually only 21 and I was only a couple of years older than you. I've seen you at the club and I've seen you partying. Furthermore, I have run into you in public way more times than you realize, but half the time I run away, the other half the time you catch me before I can. Also, when I was at the mall, the guy you pointed to and asked me if he was my boyfriend was just a random Tinder date I just met. He was definitely not my boyfriend. Fancy Shrimp says, your sense of entitlement is most likely acquired from your upbringing, so parent-teacher conferences to discuss your grades aren't going to do shit when the parents just blame us, despite you putting in little to zero effort. Milky says, if I know your name by the third day of a new school year, that means you're probably an asshole. Hey Mr. S says, the odds of you using any specific piece of knowledge you learn in high school is slim. The odds of you using some piece of knowledge from high school is near absolute, and you have no idea what it's going to be or when it will happen, so you may as well try it all of it. The biggest thing you're going to learn is how to learn.